Welcome back, guys, to another edition of the Go Earn It podcast. And today I have the great privilege to be sitting down with one of the top guys in MMA right now. Soon to be UFC fighter, in my opinion, hopefully in his as well. He is Jose Torres, Team Shorty. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, man. I can't complain. How about yourself?
Good, man. I just want to say thank you for taking your time out of your day to come on the podcast. We appreciate it.
No problem, man. I always say if I can, I will, and I'm more than happy to support if people support me.
Awesome. So, Jose, let's start from the beginning. For listeners out there, for the Go Earn It podcast that don't know who you are, let's hear a little breakdown of who Jose Torres is.
Oh, man. Where do I start? Let's see. I've been doing martial arts since I was 4. For people who don't know me, I was the first 2-time amateur IMF world champion, and then I ended up immediately signed to Titan FC as a professional. And 5 fights, I ended up becoming the 2-division weight class champion, 125 and 135. Now 6-0, defended both belts at 125 and 135, and now we'll be defending the 125-pound belt for the second time this Friday, February 16th on UFC Fight Pass for Titan FC 48. But I'm one of the best-ranked prospects outside the UFC. I am number 1 in the U.S. under Flow Combat for flyweights, and man, I'm on the verge of something big. I'm just waiting not just to get a call, but a contract.
Awesome, yeah. So for listeners that don't know, I happened to come across Jose just through social media, Instagram, the usual, how I find most fighters and get in contact with most fighters. And Jose really stuck out to me, not only because he's one of the top prospects in his weight class, but just the way he carries himself as an athlete, and your public, the PR version of yourself. You do a great job, really giving your best marketing wise in social media. You have your own apparel line. You're really making things happen. So for us, it's awesome to sit down with a guy like yourself. So Jose, you're from Chicago, correct? Chicago.
Yeah,
native?
yeah. And actually, to cut you off, to go back real quick.
Yeah, sure.
With that apparel. With that apparel line, actually, since it's fight week, every fight week I do a sale on my site, teamshorty.com. If you put in the code at checkout, fight week, 20% off of everything at teamshorty.com, from shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, hoodies, hell, you name it, hats. Awesome. So, I appreciate all the support, and that's why I do say if we can, we go together, we are Team Shorty. But, yeah, man, it's social media is the biggest thing for a fighter. It's a huge thing, and it's something a lot of fighters lack. They just,
big time.
I know a bunch of UFC fighters where I have almost tripled the amount of followers, and I'm not in the UFC yet. Some people don't even know what Titan FC is.
Yeah,
I still have good fun. I put a lot of work into it, so I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
For listeners also, Titan FC is one of the biggest, I would say, regional professional MMA. In the MMA circuit, it's top dog. You got Legacy, Titan, RFA, LFA. You can go on and on, but Titan FC. Most guys, this is the stepping stone to, Bellator, UFC, the big time, the big leagues. So a lot of fighters come out of Titan. One of your guys, I believe you train with, Curtis Blades, right?
Mm-hmm. Curtis Blades, so he fought out of Legacy at the time.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Curtis Blades just fought Mark Hunt.
Yeah. And
man, that was, it's a scary fight because Mark Hunt, in the first round, he can clock you at any time. Something can happen. But
he took some big shots too, and he took it on the chin like a champ, So
I used to coach Curtis when he was an amateur fighter, and he sometimes would never listen, or he was just grumpy, or because he was so athletic, he naturally was able to beat most people. But now that he's in a field that he's not technically the best at, which is striking and stand up, he's improved a lot in a little over a year in the UFC. So, man, he's doing some work.
Yeah, for sure. So, back to you. Where did you grow up in Chicago?
So I grew up in 2 places. One is Chicago, McKinley Park neighborhood for about 10 years, and then my family moved to Cicero, Illinois, which is a suburb right next to Chicago.
My grandma's from there. My dad's side. My dad came from Guatemala. He moved to Chicago, drove up here as an immigrant. And he grew up right in that area, so I'm very familiar with Cicero and everything.
Cicero, man, back in the day was a big factory town with all Italians, Polish, Al Capone, and then all the Latinos started coming in because of the big factory. And we pretty much took over the neighborhood, man. It's like Pilsen or Little Village number 2, So it's a big Latin neighborhood, very, very, it's very strong. I'm actually painted twice in the neighborhood.
Really?
it's so there's one on Austin and 31st in Cicero, and then two more in Chicago, which is
No
awesome,
way.
man. It's really cool to have a lot of people support me, like my two neighborhoods, and just just people taking pictures next to it, and then just being inspired by it. You
Yeah.
usually see people painted on walls of either they're dead or just that good.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
Manny Pacquiao
Right.
or Conor McGregor or
Or
whatever.
like
So it's like,
Nate Diaz in Stockton, they got that
yeah.
big Nate Diaz mural. So anyways, um, growing up, you were always in mixed martial arts, huh? You grew up in all sorts of different types of martial arts, right?
Yeah, so I started with Shotokan Karate, got my black belt in that. Eventually, took a year off, and I watched WEC, and I saw like Uriah Faber,
Yeah.
Joseph Benavidez, all these small guys. It's like, whoa, they have small fighters. This is awesome. This is something I want to do.
Yeah.
My dad was a goonie back in the day in gangs, to where he always used to fight to collect money and all that stuff. Like that's just what he was. So
Right.
for me, I grew up fighting. I've always wanted to be in like an actual fight, and even though I was never in many street fights, my dad would take me to and then just practice and beat me up, and my big brother would do the same thing. So eventually, I found Combat Do, where I'm at still today with Master Bob Sherman. I mean, I've been there since 16 years old, and
Yeah.
I've been able to travel the world, winning national, world titles, and now two division champion at Titan FC.
Awesome. So where are you training? Where do you live now, as we speak?
Well, I still live in Chicago, but right now I'm currently at American Top Team in Coconut Creek.
No
I
way.
mean, I'm training with some of the best in the world, Barao, Formiga, which we saw Formiga's knockout 2 days ago, which is amazing.
Yeah, amazing.
Pedro Munhoz, the ONE FC champ, Adriano Moraz. I mean, the list goes on and on. Kyoji Horiguchi. There's so many small guys at such a high caliber where I want to be, and to know I can hang with these guys and even sometimes best them. It's like, yeah, this is exactly what I want to do. I just need to be able to prove it.
Yeah. So that's a good segue to talk a little bit about ATT. For starters, if you could, when you get a chance, tell Steve Mako I said hello, because I did a podcast with Steve a couple months back when I was down in Florida for an event, and Steve was a great interview and a great guy, and I'm sure you've worked with him a little bit in wrestling. So a good segue. Let's talk a little bit about your wrestling background. How did wrestling come into play with your life and your mixed martial arts background?
Well, it's funny because I actually lost a bet to join wrestling.
Really?
When I was a kid, all my friends after football would join wrestling. They're like, "Oh, we're gonna go to a wrestling club. Come on, Shorty." And I told my dad, I was like, "Hey, can I do it?" And he goes, "Is that the one where they wear all the tights?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "No, that's gay." I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay." And being a little kid, I'm like, "Yeah, that's gay." So I never did it. So which, given I regret, I definitely wish I would have done it. I would have been much of a better wrestler. But
Right.
things happen for a reason. But I got to high school, again, same thing. Football happened. Was trying out for the basketball team. Kid about like 5 feet tall, trying out for the basketball
Yeah.
team. And I wasn't bad. I just,
The
I
height
was last.
will trump you.
The coach said, "Hey, man, I just don't need you. Like your height doesn't
Yeah.
it doesn't fit." So I'm like, cool. And anyways, when I was walking into basketball tryouts, the wrestling coach was like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I'm gonna go try out for basketball." He goes, "Well, when you get cut, I'll see you in the wrestling room." I'm like, all right. Well, I got cut and I ended up in the wrestling room that whole year. Even though I was good at it,
Yeah.
I wasn't really enjoying it. I was just trying my best to be cut, and he never cut me. And for some reason, eventually the next year, I just, I grew more friends,
Yeah.
got more popular with it. I got better and better and better, and ended up being a state qualifier. Wasn't much, was just a little above average in my high school.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
eventually went to junior college because my grades weren't the best, and I eventually picked up my grades to 3.0, became an All-American in college. Because those two things combined, I had a full ride to a Division II school, and I didn't get to finish my last year because of weight problems
Right.
and just overall just scenarios at school. But overall, I was able to graduate and get my degree, and that's all that mattered. And wrestling took me to college and paid for my school. And after that, I used the wrestling accolades in my fights, and hell, it's definitely saved me in a lot of fights, mainly my last one.
Yeah, I happened to, when I was doing my little research on you, I watched your last fight, and big time. I mean, wrestling. What people don't understand about the sport, especially working for a company like Go Earn It, is wrestling is just not a sport. It applies to life big time. Whether it's just learning life lessons like hard work. The harder you work at something, the better you're gonna get, the better results. And with a guy like yourself, I can relate because I started my freshman year of high school as well. with wrestling. And the only reason why I did it was because my football coach told me if I want to be a better football player, you better get into wrestling. And sure enough, I worked at it, and I ended up being a qualifier my senior year. But for me, I felt accomplished, and for most guys that look at wrestling as a negative sport or like gay or whatever you might call it, until they actually see and go on the mat and see what it's all about, it's a game changer. So for you would agree that, if you would have wrestled at an earlier stage in your life, it would have applied better now as a MMA fighter, correct?
Well, I definitely believe so. For me, I did karate and I immediately went to wrestling, which were two different styles, but I had the hips for wrestling because of karate.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, once you get into MMA, I think wrestling is the best base to start off at.
For sure.
If you're trying to get into MMA, I mean, you see so many people struggling, like stand-up fighters, that finally face wrestling. It's not the problem of getting taken down. Like, that's going to happen. Even if you're a good wrestler, you're going to get taken down. Yeah. It's being able to scramble and get back up. And for me, like, I like to scramble. That was my big successor, in college. And, it really does help a lot. Like you said, it's a mental game. It teaches you how to, mentally prepare yourself, even for bad weight cuts and little things like that. Like, it really does prepare you. And I think because of wrestling, I am where I'm at today.
Yeah, I think with wrestling, it's such a great setup, especially if you want to be an MMA fighter, because, you get all the aspects of working hard, the grind of the long practices, and the biggest thing is the weight cutting aspect. Most guys that come into MMA, no one's ever taught a correct way to cut weight. And with wrestling, you kind of get a sense of how to manage your weight better and how to do it the right way versus the wrong way. So when I asked you about, before this interview, I asked you how your weight was, and you said, you're good, man. And that, that's huge, because a lot of guys, especially in UFC, you hear about all the time, they blow weight. Like this past weekend with Yoel Romero, he lost, and he's been wrestling all his life. And still, it doesn't matter who you are. That weight cut's tough, man, especially for a guy like yourself. Let's talk a little bit about that. Being a 25-pounder, how is it for you managing that throughout your career? You're getting older now. You're 25, right? 25?
Yeah, 25.
Do you have any plans on bumping up, or is 25 going to be somewhere you're going to stay at for a while?
25 is definitely where I'm going to stay at for a while. I'm still trying to get used to controlling my weight and not binge up too much. Given the week after fight week is always my week. I like to enjoy myself, but I also have to make sure that, my last two fights I've been injured. So one of them, I broke my hand, tore my MCL, so I was out for 6 months until I was able to fight again. So you get fat. You definitely get fat and happy when you can't work out.
Yeah, big time.
And then, I got lucky that the next fight was at 35 to defend my belt, which I thought was the right thing to do anyways. Defended it. Which it wasn't hard to make weight. That's not the problem. It was, even now, it's been over a year since I fought at flyweight. So I usually weigh between 148 to 155, depending on how fat I want to be. Yeah. And I decided to come down to American Top Team, but for some reason my weight was hitting the wall. It took me a little while to get down to 35, and it took me a little while to get to C32, and I was finally able to C32 not too long ago. So awesome. Getting the weight down now is fine, mainly because I have nutrition on my side, which is Louis Giordano. But it's still never fun. I can tell you that it's never gonna be fun for fight week.
No, never.
But it's part of the job, and that's the reason why a lot of people look up to us, because there's not many people can do what we do.
No, not at all. MMA as a career is probably one of the hardest jobs you can ever do. And most guys aren't successful, I'll tell you that. Let's talk a little about your fight team. How's the atmosphere right now training? Tell me a little bit about what the mindset is coming into fight week for your coaches, yourself, your surrounding, your environment. What's the biggest key for you?
Man, I think the biggest thing for me fight week is just being mentally prepared, not for the fight. The fight's the easy part. Yeah. You go into a fight, for me, I sparred with some of the best, so I'm not worried about anyone I fight.
Yeah.
It's, if you win or lose, but I think for me, it's more of, you got to stay mentally prepared, mainly for the weight cut. I think that's the hardest part. That's where people break. That's where top-level athletes, you look at one of the biggest examples, the last one was Anthony Pettis when he fought Max Holloway.
Yeah.
He's made 45 before, and then it just got too tough, and people
Right.
mentally break. It really does happen. Given there's other certain circumstances that happen in the background that people don't know about, but
Yeah.
for me, at least in college, I did break multiple times making 25, and I did have a really hard time, and that's why I wasn't able to finish my career. I was like, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to do it
Yeah,
anymore.
it's not worth it.
So, for me now, it's more of, okay, I have a nutritionist now or a weight management specialist. I have someone watching me, taking care of me, and I'm a professional fighter now. I
That's
want to show people that I can do it, and the biggest thing that I think motivates me is during fight week. I'm excited. I just wanted get the fight over and done with, and I'm just
Yeah.
excited to eat after. But everyone's hitting me up. Oh, good luck for your fight. I can't wait to watch. Or kids are hitting me up or sending me videos. So it's really motivating. And for me, I did the sport to be an inspiration, to be a hero. And
Yeah.
fight week, it really shines that week. So it really does help push me forward.
That's awesome. So with your coaches now, how is it for you? Do you tend to take reins of how your week goes up until that fight day, or is it all based on what your coaches tell you to do? Do you follow like an itinerary? I know all MMA fighters have their different style. What's your type of style coming into fight week with just planning and executing, practices and whatnot?
I mean, for me, I usually do it all myself.
Yeah.
My head coach is in Chicago, which he will be flying in for my fight. Actually, think either tomorrow or Wednesday. And then my team flies in all tomorrow. But I have American Top Team here, which is great. The only problem is I'm now, in a sense, cutting weight. So
Yeah.
I'm not doing any of the practices anymore. I'm not doing any drills. I'm just
Right.
doing my own thing to cut the weight. So.
Yeah.
Usually fight week, I try to be a loner and be myself. Just
Yeah.
be by myself, be in my room, do whatever I need to do to cut weight in the morning, cut weight at night, and just relax. I try not to do anything. I try not to socialize too much.
Yeah.
I get a little cranky, but
Don't
try.
we
I
all
just
when we
try
cut
to.
weight?
Yeah, I'm hangry if people want to
Yeah.
call it, but I just want to lay down, relax, and do as little as possible because that's the best thing you need.
Yeah, big time. So let's talk a little bit about your opponent this weekend. Who is he? What's his background? You want to give me a little insight on what you're looking into going into the cage against?
The crazy thing is I don't know much about him. I know he's fought a couple guys here. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. It's kind of it's kind of like the Apollo Creed versus Rocky 1 story,
Really?
where it's just kind of the champ. He's like, oh, you know what? No one wants to fight me. Sure, let's fight just some random guy and see where it goes and give him the opportunity. Well, for me, no one wanted to fight me. In my last post-fight interview when I fought and I'm defending my third round championship,
Yeah.
I go, UFC, sign me. Don't give me a call, sign me, because now I'm fighting number 2, number 3, number 4. It's not motivating for me.
Yeah.
I need accolades. I'm 6-0 with this huge record, beating a 57-19 record
Yeah.
at only 6-0. But now I'm fighting guys with less than 5 or less than 10 fights and less than I need something that's worth fighting. And
Big time.
right now, every guy that's next in line, I do believe in the ranking system. The number 2, number 3, and number 4 guy all denied the fight.
Really?
So it's like, okay, cool. Well, who wants to fight me? And Alberto Oriano's like, I'll take it. I'm like,
Give
sure,
him credit.
why not?
Yeah, give him credit.
And I give him nothing but credit. It's very brave. Paper-wise, it's a very dumb move, but hey, man,
Yeah, it's risky. It's very risky for you, and not a lot of fighters will do what you do because you see it all the time with UFC guys that and Bellator. They take fights that they just want to get in the cage and they want to take that fight. And sometimes, I think a good example I can bring back to is when Cowboy fought Darren Till. Darren Till was up and coming. Cowboy had no business stepping in the cage with him because, Cowboy already had an established name. And, Cerrone ended up losing that fight. And that guy, Darren Till, capitalized, Same thing with, I read an article about you talking about not being able to get signed with the UFC because of injury, not being able to take a fight last year. And same thing with McGregor, McGregor is the same way. You kind of have that. It's kind of eerie how similar you guys have that same story where, you guys are coming in, same prospect, same level of hype, and you're just 1-2 fights away from getting that call. And I know UFC's coming to Chicago in the summer, so I think my next question is that what you're shooting for next? I mean, certainly you don't want to look past this opponent, but you got to have your sights set on, the bigger stage, of course.
Yeah, I don't know much about Alberto Oriano, but I'm trying to treat it as the World Championships. People don't know the IMF, the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation, which I was able to win twice.
Yeah.
You have to fight 5 times in 1 week against,
Jeez.
the respected national champ they put you up against. So you don't know their fighting style. You don't know who you're up against. You don't know anything. If you're able to find film or watch them, when they fight, then so be it. But it's very rare. So
right.
I pretty much train for everything. So I'm ready just to go in there, finish the fight as fast as possible so I can go into the next day, be as healthy. My last 2 fights have been injured, so I'm ready for UFC Chicago. That's the biggest thing that is my Madison Square Garden. That is my holy grail, So for me, that is the ultimate goal is to fight in Chicago. It's been about 5-6 years since I fought at home, because I finally got to a high enough level to where I started to travel, train, and do so many things that Chicago, is I surpassed it when it came to the local stuff, but then the UFC's coming in. It's like, oh, I need to go back. I need to go back. Man. So that's my ultimate goal. If I'm able to debut or even just get a fight there, that'd be awesome. But if not, I just fingers crossed, and just overall this event is first, but UFC Chicago is my motivating factor right now.
Yeah, the very first 2 events that UFC put up in Chicago, I went to both of them. And, man, I was just in such an awe because, you're at the United Center. You used to watching Bulls games and everything. But to see actual UFC cage, and I was on the floor, so I saw it was like an experience for me that I'll never forget. And the cool thing about UFC events and a lot of MMA events in general is all the fighters are just normal people like yourself, man. When you go out, when you're walking around concessions, I remember first walking in the United Center, and my dad tapped me on the shoulder, and I'm in awe of everything. And he's like, "Dude, look who it is." And I'm like, "Shut up, Dad. I'm in the zone right now." And sure enough, I look to my right, and John Jones is with Maokikawa just right there. No one notices them, and I'm like, "Oh my God, this is nuts." So, that's the cool thing about just MMA in general. It's guys like yourself. You're just normal people. That's it. But when you're a fan like myself, you treat these people like they're celebrities, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's an awesome experience. So I wanted to get this in quick. I know you're short on time, and I appreciate the time once again. What's it like training with guys like Barao, Tj Dillashaw? How's that experience for you? Because, you're just that close. You're right there, and you're training with some of the best in the world.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. I was helping TJ for John Lineker. I was helping him for the Cody Garbrandt fight.
Yeah.
Dotson, Swanson, BJ Penn. You name it. I've helped a lot of people. I've helped like 75% of the people in my weight class too.
Right.
Sergio Pettis, Brandon Moreno, Eric Sheldon. The list goes on. But man, it's really cool to know that given it's practice. So if you bet someone to practice, dude, it's practice, whatever. But but it's really cool to know, 1, the camaraderie between everyone, and 2, that I know I can hold my own against some of the best in the world, and I have trained with some of the best in the world. TJ Dillashaw, for example, he's one of those guys that go 100%, so I know I can hold my own against one of the best in the world.
Yeah.
So I'm just excited to hopefully one day be able to showcase those skills. Friday is just another day. Whoop, there goes my lights. There's another day. Come on, sensor. Let's do it, sensor. I have like a little sensor. But anyways, there we go. But yeah, man, it's really cool to have these really great fighters help me out and know that I can hold my own against these guys and just really push forward. I'm just waiting for the opportunity.
Now, for you, if you can, I always want to ask, give a little insight on one of those training days. Can you tell me an experience that always sticks out in your mind? Maybe it's TJ, maybe it's Henan, whoever it may be. Has there ever been like a moment where it stuck out to you, like, man, this was awesome, like a good scrap in the gym or something?
Well, I can tell you the first time I sparred with TJ, everyone was telling me to stay away from him because he does kind of go hard, and I'm prideful.
I've heard stories about him, especially with that beef with Cody, and they were teammates.
I'm assuming that's all 100% true, at least from what I've seen in the gym.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just a game guy. That's really all he is, and they say if you can't take it, then don't go with him. And for me, I'm very prideful. I like getting beat up a little bit. We saw my fights. I always have to get punched a couple times to really wake up. But I ended up sparring with TJ accidentally. I was just an oddball, and him and I ended up going. And he's literally like, "Hey man, what are you doing after your fight? Can you come back for a month and help me for my camp?" I was just like,
"No way."
Well, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
I just met him.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to know. And then I was his only training partner for that whole camp for the
Wow.
Lineker fight. And so a couple other UFC fighters come on in, both like either flyweight or bantamweight,
Yeah.
and they go in there, and this is TJ's last sparring day, and I'm done sparring with TJ. Like I just did my 3 rounds with him. TJ has 2 more to go,
Yeah.
and he's sparring with a UFC bantamweight, and he spars with a UFC flyweight, and he's just demolishing both of them. Like I'm kind of like sparring and like looking over, I'm just like,
Oh,
you know.
wow, yeah.
And so I was like, man, I'm doing really well. Like I'm holding my own against these guys. And then he drops one of them, and they're just like, oh man, hey, get out. Shorty, jump back in. You're the only one holding your own. I'm just like, yeah,
That's
So,
awesome.
it's really cool to know that, one, the camaraderie, and two, like Dwayne Ludwig's a fantastic coach. He taught me so much, and I'm still implementing a lot of his stuff today. And just to know TJ has my back, and be able to know that him and I can literally go back and forth and literally push each other to our limit. I mean, he helped me for my fight against Sharapov to win the 35-pound belt.
Yeah.
Helped him his fight in the Lineker and Cody Garbrandt. It's just, it really is amazing to know that I have some really, really great fighters, not just, average fighters, but UFC champions helping me out.
Yeah, that's huge. What do you think his next move is? You think DJ's going to come up? Or?
It's DJ. That's the only fight that makes sense, unless Jimmy Rivera fights whomever and gets that automatic title shot. But DJ makes the most sense. It's a super fight. It brings a lot of excitement to the flyweight division. Whether whoever wins or loses, it's an exciting fight. And that's TJ wants to signify himself as one of the best in the world, and I believe he is. He just needs to prove it against another champion. I believe that's Demetrius Johnson.
Big time. So as we're closing in on this podcast, I know you have your own apparel line, but I just want to let you know that we're going to be sending you some gear on us just because we appreciate you being on the podcast today. So we're going to send you some fight gear, some training gear. But also for listeners out there, please go to teamshorty.com. Check out the apparel. Get yourself some apparel. So my last question, and I always close out the podcast with this, is when somebody asks you, what does go earn it mean to you, what would you say?
Go earn it?
Yes.
Man, go earn it. I mean, it's definitely, it seems as simple as possible. Go get it, go get it done. But for me, it's, you got to look at all the detail behind it, man. It's like, go earn it. Go earn what? What are you doing this for? What motivated you to get this even started?
Yeah.
Like for me, I look at MMA. I never wanted to be a champion. I never was like, oh, I need to be a champion. My goal was to be a hero and inspire people. Right. It just so happens all these belts came into play and all these champions. Like, it's awesome. Like, I love it. Yeah. And I know inevitably I'm going to lose one day. It so happens, knock on wood, it doesn't happen anytime soon. But, but it's one of those things that for me, go earn it is what motivated me in the first place. For me, it was to be a hero. So I keep on pushing forward every single day, whether I'm struggling, doing all these things, fight week, cutting weight, stuff I really don't want to do, but it's stuff that motivates people to push up and get up and do whatever they want to do, whether it be MMA or an office job or, reaching whatever goals they want to achieve. So it's really cool to just get up and do it. So for me, go earn it means looking at what, why I started this, and I'm getting up and doing it.
That's awesome. I think you nailed it right on the head. One more thing. He would kill me if I didn't give him a shout out. Jose Leon, he's actually fighting this weekend. His first pro debut at XFO.
Oh wow!
In Woodstock, Illinois. You got any words for Jose? He's actually one of our he's a Go Earn It sponsored fighter, so he's getting ready for this week. This Saturday, he's fighting his first pro at flyweight.
Awesome,
you got any advice for him?
It's funny. I got one bad quote that actually messed me up mentally for fight week. So we'll see how he takes it. You only make your pro debut once, so don't mess up. No, it's honestly, it's another fight. Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's for money. Doesn't matter if it's a real record now. Because amateur, you can be 0-30 or 30-0. Once you go pro, it's it goes back to 0-0. But hey, man, you trained your butt off for this. You did your thing. I know you support this team, and I really appreciate that, man. You do rep a Jose Shorty Torres team a lot, and I appreciate that. But go out there, have fun, and do things that you're doing something that not many people can do. So take pride in that all in itself. Don't worry about what can happen or what he can do or what's going to happen in the fight. Just go out there, do what you do best, And if you lose, then so be it. You're going to learn, and you're going to make yourself a lot better for the next fight. So take every opportunity you can.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the kind words. I know Jose is going to very appreciate that. So where can listeners find you, Jose Torres?
Yeah, Instagram, Jose Shorty Torres. Twitter, Shorty Torres 125. Facebook, Jose Shorty Torres with quotations around Shorty. And again, if people want to support the team this week only right now, use the code FIGHTWEEK at teamshorty.com for 20% off of everything. And, man, I really do appreciate the support again. That's why I always do say we can, we will. Together we are Team Shorty, and I'm representing Chicago and everyone around the world that just, just takes part in the team, man. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And thank you for your time, Jose. And where can listeners watch you fight this weekend?
Titan FC 48 live in Fort Lauderdale at Extreme Action Park, or live exclusively on UFC Fight Pass.
Well, Jose, we'll be watching you. We'll be rooting for you.